What do you do when you really want to go to the Renaissance Festival with your friend, but you're still riding that high from Comic-Con? We're gonna take a time and we'll both share our answers here at the count of 3. Okay. 1, 2, 3. We plan out Over the Garden Wall cosplay literally less than a month before the event. Is that not what you said? Well, you know what? That might be what I did. So you're just gonna have to stick around to see how I did it. Hello all, it is I, not Maria, and welcome back to the channel. I do cosplay, I do crafting, and I do just kind of journaling type videos. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Hi, hello, welcome. And well, see, here's the thing. Over the past couple of weeks, I spent all of my weekend of those past weeks making the accessories for my Greg costume from Over the Garden Wall. The first thing on my mind was the iconic kettle hat. I'll show a picture of it here on screen. I mean, like I said, it would also be helpful to show you what Greg looks like. Unfortunately, I lost all the footage from the beginning of me trying to make this, but the main idea is that I use some basic geometry to figure out the measurements of a cylinder. I'll show you basically what I did using this piece of cardstock that I have left over, so at least you can follow along if this is something that you're interested in doing. Now, this project did not come out perfectly or even anything close to what I imagined, so I'll sprinkle in some things that you could do to make it a little bit better. Without further ado, let's begin! Yee! So you're gonna take a cardboard box and you're gonna open it up so it's all just one large rectangle. I measured around my head to get the circumference of the kettle. And if you make this at home, please add like another inch or 2. You'll see why pretty soon. From there, you're gonna cut little slits every ½ inch or so on the top and the bottom of your rectangle. Then you're gonna cross over the cutouts, like over each other, skipping every other cutout. I didn't measure this, but it just so happened that I was able to get like an even amount. So if you're a little bit more particular about stuff like this, make sure that you measure. Otherwise, freehand. I mean, you know what? It's a free world. We can do whatever we want, so we don't have to be bogged down by things like measurements. But now that we've got all this cut out, we can actually focus on the base of the kettle. To make this, you'll need to cut out a circle, whatever size you want. Again, just make sure that it's a little bit smaller than the hole that your head is going to go into. If you want to be a little bit more specific, you're going to take your head measurement, divide by 3.14, and you're going to round down to the nearest whole inch. Either way, you cut a strip of cardboard and you're going to go around the outside base circle. This is for the base of the kettle, so for a lot of this, I'm thinking about it as like if it were like an actual kettle that I'm making instead of just like, you know, something that's gonna go upside down. So that really helped me figure out in which step and in what order I really need to make things. For the handle and spout, that's a little bit easier. I drew out the general shapes on paper and then cut out the same shape twice on the cardboard using those stencils. The reason why you would need 2 of the same shape is so that you can use more cardboard, and you're gonna kind of make like these little rectangles and set them perpendicular so that you're able to make 3D shapes. You can stuff it with more paper to kind of help it hold up, but I just kind of make a ton of tiny little rectangles that I like put in, I don't know, every like ½ inch, ¼ inch, and then I used hot glue to stick it all together for further reinforcement. And because I didn't have enough cardboard to actually like go around the shape of the spout, I just covered everything in packing tape. In fact, if I haven't already made it clear, I'm sticking everything together either with packing tape and or hot glue. In a lot of places, it's a combination of the 2 just so that it dries fast and it actually holds together. Now that we've got kind of like the base shape of all this, setup, you want to get everything smooth. Cardboard isn't super smooth and you just want to use some sort of paper. I just use the packing paper that comes with whatever box that I receive, and you just wrap it around that kettle. This part's super important because, like I said, you want to make sure that everything is as smooth as possible. I didn't do the best of job because I was kind of rushing at the last minute. But you are a better planner than I am, so you're gonna take your time. You're gonna make sure that you have plenty of time to do something like this, because oh boy, it's only gonna get worse from here. But getting it really smooth is also really important, because now is when you're gonna actually glue the handle and the spout correctly onto your base, and like the base kettle part, and you need to make sure that you glue that bottom base part to the bottom of your kettle. Again, make sure that you're thinking about this like as if you were making a little teapot, because that's just gonna make it a lot easier to like conceptualize what's going on, because at the end of the day you're just gonna turn it upside down and put it on your head. But again, make sure that you're gluing everything like correctly, because if you're using hot glue and or tape on paper, that's a whole nother disaster. Thankfully I didn't do that, but like, you know, now that your base kettle, your teapot has actually been made, we gotta paint it. At first, I wanted to make it look like metal by having black, gray, and silver paint on my brush all at once. However, it looked really sloppy, so I just repainted everything to have a gray background. And I use this as kind of like, I think the technical term is a mid-tone. I bought this gray paint literally because I thought I had picked up silver, because it was in the little section where it should have been silver, but it's just like a medium regular gray. So, you know, you live and you learn. Maybe if you have some better artistic skills, you could really make it look a lot more metal-y, but I just used this mid-shade gray as like the color of my teapot, and then I used some lighter grays and dark grays for the highlights and shadows respectively. Then once I got that looking all right, I outlined the highlights with a silver Sharpie to really make those places pop. Because this is a 3D shape, I wanted to make it look more cartoony, so in some places I actually added a little bit of shading, a little bit of shadow. I tried to keep everything a little bit more circular, more rounder, just to kind of give the general teapot a more round feeling, since I didn't really do all that good of a job of making it round. But also, where the handle and the spout are, I also added some more shading so that it looks like a light is hitting it. Genius work. I love that. I felt so smart doing that, and it really for me kind of saved doing the kettle. I actually added a little piece of elastic to go from like the kettle under my neck, because I did make it a little bit too small. I use like the exact measurements of my head, which when you actually look at your head, it's more like an oval shape, and like the kettle or the teapot came out like a round shape. So like a round isn't gonna go on a kettle. So that's why I said at the beginning to make sure that you add a couple of inches so that you actually have space for your head to fit in. But that's okay. If you really wanted to make something smaller, like a small teapot, because I have my teapot in my background off screen and I don't know what to do with it now because it's kind of a little bit too big, but it kind of needs to be decisions. But yeah, I really needed to add something like that to really hold it on my head. But now that we kind of moved out of that fiasco, we can move on to the frog. I did actually make my own frog, and here's the thing, if you've checked any of my recent videos, then you know that I have been developing my sewing skills, right? I have been working on it. And I just want everyone to know, I want it to be held on record, that this is my first time sewing a stuffed creature or stuffed animal. So I made a million mistakes. Don't take this part as like a how to do it, because I did it all wrong. But we'll get there. We'll get there. It's, ooh, ooh. If you actually know how to sew, avert your eyes. This part's gonna be bad. To make a frog like this, first of all, you gotta figure out what fabric you want and which side you want to be the visible side. I chose this on-sew fabric from Walmart. Literally, that section, that like clearance section for scrap fabric from Walmart has been a lifesaver as I've been like learning how to sew. Or maybe not learning, but like learning and developing my sewing skills. So don't ignore it if you're just like starting out, because you want to figure out which side is your visible side. Because using that fabric, you can very easily just find some frog, stuffed animal, frog sewing patterns on the internet for cheap, not pretty cheap. Wait, no, this is free. Once you figure out what fabric you want to use, like I said, I just use some pretty cheap fabric that I've got some other plans for, so you know, stay tuned, keep an eye out for that. But I literally just looked online for some frog plushie patterns, and I found this one from Sew a Softie. I'm gonna include it in the description, so like don't worry. I think it was pretty good. It was pretty straightforward, and I didn't really have to like cut out all that much, so honestly it made it really easy. But here's kind of like the basic steps of what you need to do. You're gonna fold and pin your fabric right sides together. Right sides just meaning that's the side that you want to go on the outside, so that you get two identical cutouts. I chose to pin my fabric layers and paper together just because it would make everything so much easier. How? Well, turns out you can actually sew like paper on your sewing machine. All I have to do is sew around one time and cut it out one time. Okay, I love skipping steps. This is so nice. I just used normal like copy paper from my printer, and I just used a regular straight stitch. I think that's what that's called, at least. However, here's where I really start realizing that I made mistakes. Because first of all, I forgot to add the bits where you can turn him around. Whenever you make an animal like this that you need to flip inside out, you always want to make sure that you have a discreet hole to kind of turn them around from. I totally forgot to do that, so I ended up having to like, you know, use a seam ripper to break him out. And I also forgot to define his little fingies, his little like pads or whatever frogs have. This is why you shouldn't sew all under the influence. I have sewed this guy shut. Look at him. First of all, I wanted to use that as the inside fabric, and so now he's glittery. Second of all, I tried to do like a nice little border around him just to make him a little bit more interesting. But I closed him up, so now how am I going to fill his little body? So don't forget those details. Make sure that you remember, because I sure didn't. Once you get past all that, the difficult part starts. I know. Because once you get this little guy turned inside out, you're gonna fill him up and then sew his hole back up. I'm so sorry. I mean, I literally wrote down, that's what she said. But like, yeah. Anyways, I filled him up with pom-poms, like the little, you know, I just had them lying around. This would actually be a really good spot for you to just use scrap fabric to fill them up. Just depending on the kind of fabric, how thin or how sheer or how dark your pom-poms are, just make sure that you're using good filling, because you can definitely see the pom-poms in different lighting. So either just make sure that your fabric's a little bit thicker, a little bit darker, or just choose some lighter fill. Or if you don't care, sure, power to you. The other issue that I experienced as well is that I accidentally picked the wrong sides. I actually want to use the back of this fabric, or the wrong side. So I ended up having all these sparkly bits on the outside, which isn't wrong, but it's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. And since this guy actually needs to look like Mr. President, I actually painted him on top of sewing him. So I made thicker paint than I really should have, only because I accidentally used that glittery side. And realistically, if I had used the right side, or the side that I wanted to use for my fabric, then I would have just diluted it down, like the paint that is, with a little bit of water so that it's not so thick and I don't end up actually having to use as much of the paint. And especially because I used acrylic paint, so like that stuff dries pretty quickly. It took me a whole afternoon just to like paint this little guy, because I wanted to make sure that like every layer of paint was fully dry before moving on to the next spot. And like, listen, that's what my intentions were, but that's not what happened. This guy has a lot of mistakes because I did not wait enough time between layers, because I was listening to a deep dive on Ram Ranch by Strange Aeons, and I just needed to take far too many breathers only to make it halfway through the video, because there was just so much going on. And it also really sucks because the video clips of me actually painting Jason Pluggerberger, just, it also got corrupted. So I don't even have anything. Here's the thing, right? With the gay audacity of doing as much as I can for a costume, I also made a little painted rock using leftover like cardboard. I know that frog was just a total letdown, like, and it, you know what, it also like kind of hurt, and like maybe I could go back and redo it, but like I really just needed to prove much to myself that I could do it, which I did do it. I did finish a frog, but you know what, it's a good learning experience, right? It's just building up my resilience, okay? So we're gonna get through it. I'm gonna hold your hand. We're gonna get through this together. But because all of that just hurt and I was kind of just like, wow, I did so poorly, I'm gonna start kind of just beating myself up over this, I thought, okay, well, surely I can't mess up painting a rock. And I think that my little rock came out perfect, okay? Compared to my frog, this came out perfectly. And like, here's the thing too, right? If I didn't literally live in the desert, I would have just picked up like a normal pebble or like rock from outside, but I can't, so I didn't. So instead I just used some leftover cardboard. It was like not enough to use on the rest of my kettle, but like just enough for a rock fact. And he looks pretty proportional to what he does in like the cartoon, so I did pretty well on that. But I just kind of did the same thing that I did for a lot of the other parts of this costume. I took my piece of cardboard, I just kind of like made a little, you know, draw out what shape I want. I cut him out, and then I used packing tape, again, same tape that I've been using, to really give it texture. Then I just painted a little guy. It did take me a lot to wait for each layer to be fully painted, but I think he came out so cute, like. And also, again, because I'm a genius and I have the audacity to make it more cartoony, I even gave him like a little, like, some little shading and like a little outline using black paint, and he's just so cute. He's so perfect. I love him. And like I said, this took me probably a month to make, because I actually didn't make any of the other pieces, just these three. I already had a white button up and I put like a white t-shirt underneath. I had to buy the overalls because there was no way in hell that I was making an overalls like with so little time. With all of these like trials and tribulations and difficulties, it really got me thinking, and it really got me excited for the Renaissance Festival, because like Over the Garden Wall holds a space of like the fall show for me to watch or rewatch every fall. I only watched it for the first time a couple of years ago, but the chokehold that the show has over me, unmatched. Unmatched. The vibes, unmatched. The soundtrack, unmatched. The story, unmatched. I feel for this show the way that a lot of people feel about Gilmore Girls, like just as it being a fall classic. And I hope that it was fun for you to join me as I kind of show you how I did this and also show you just my love for this show. Unfortunately, the universe conspired against me literally the weekend of the Renaissance Festival, and I wasn't able to go. But let's look at the reveal. I know, it came out so cute. I was so sad the day of the Renaissance Festival because, again, the universe just conspired against me. But I just felt so freaking cute. And I made a couple of TikToks and I know, it came out so cute. Everything came out just so handmade, and like none of it was perfect except for my rock fact. But everything's just kind of like, I don't know, a little, not sloppy, but just like a little poorly done. And I think that really captures the essence of the show, and especially of like Greg's costume, because like what is he even wearing? He's just wearing like green overalls and a kettle on his head, and he picked up some random frog. And I had so much fun doing this. And next year's Renaissance Festival, I at least have my costume ready. Looking on the bright side. And also I have worn those overalls so often already. Yeah, it's getting added to the work outfit rotation because it's just so good. It's just so comfortable. Anyways, thank you so much for joining me in today's video. I hope you had a good time, and if you do end up like making anything, please let me know in the comments or like on Instagram or TikTok. Should I like join Blue Sky? We'll see. But yeah, just tag me. I'm not Maria1317 literally everywhere. And if you've enjoyed this video, please leave a like, subscribe. Let me know in the comments if there's something you would like for me to make, or if there's anything that you'd be interested in me redoing, or just like explaining a little bit more. Ask questions. I know that this wasn't how to, but like I can answer questions. And I really hope that you have a good day. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye!